Have you ever noticed the almost imperceptible changes in a woman's body language around you? Small, hidden gestures that seem to convey more than words could ever express. This subtle dance is a language in itself, one that is often more powerful and revealing than anything she might say aloud. Understanding these subtle signs is like learning a new dialect, an entirely unspoken yet incredibly potent means of communication. It's not always obvious, but when you tune in closely, these silent cues can tell you volumes about her unexpressed desires, and the emotions she may not yet fully realize are there. When a woman has gone without the warmth of intimacy for some time, her body often seeks to release that pent-up energy in small, nearly unnoticed ways. These movements and signals may seem casual or inconsequential to the untrained eye, but to someone paying attention, they can be profound. Her body language, in many cases, becomes the unspoken voice of her heart, communicating what her mind may be too shy or cautious to express directly. It's as though her very skin becomes a canvas, painting silent stories with each movement, glance, and touch. The hidden desires in her movements. At its core, body language is a reflection of the deeper emotional states we carry within. For a woman who has not felt the closeness of a truly intimate connection in a while, the body responds almost like a wound waiting to heal, except this wound is emotional in nature, and the healing process begins with these subtle movements. It's a fascinating phenomenon that many overlook. Her body does not simply mimic behavior, it actively creates an environment in which her inner needs can begin to speak. From the way her eyes glance your way, to the small, almost subconscious way she touches her face or leans in just a little closer, everything becomes part of a quiet conversation. For example, her eyes may linger just a bit longer than normal when she catches your gaze. It's not a gaze that's overt or flirtatious, but rather a soft, intense look that seems to reach deeper, as though she's trying to see beyond the surface. Her fingers might idly trace through her hair, pulling strands between her fingertips, a simple gesture that seems innocent, but in reality, it's a tiny, unintentional display of vulnerability, a yearning for connection. Her laughter may carry a subtle undertone, light and soft, but if you listen carefully, it's more than just an expression of amusement. It's the sound of a woman trying to connect, to invite closeness, and perhaps even to test if you're perceptive enough to recognize the invitation. A story of subtle gestures. An invitation without words. Let me share with you a story that has stayed with me for years, one that beautifully illustrates the power of these unspoken cues. A close friend once confided in me about an experience he had with a coworker. At first, he noticed little shifts in her behavior. Nothing too dramatic, just small changes that he brushed off as coincidences. But over time, he began to see a pattern. She would lean in ever so slightly closer during their conversations, as if drawn to him magnetically. It wasn't anything overt, nothing that screamed for attention, but it felt like a small yet significant shift in the space between them. Her gaze, too, began to change. It wasn't the typical casual glance people often exchange in passing. It was more intense, focused. Her eyes seemed to hold his gaze for just a moment longer, a lingering look that carried with it an energy he hadn't expected. The way she laughed also began to shift. There was a softness to it, a quality that made it feel more intimate, almost as if it were meant for him alone. But the most telling sign was when she casually reached up to touch her hair, running her fingers through it slowly, almost as if to distract herself or perhaps, as he later realized, to draw attention to herself in a subtle, almost subconscious way. To an outsider, these actions might have seemed completely innocent, even mundane, but to him, they spoke volumes. He began to understand that these small gestures were not random, they were purposeful, crafted unintentionally by her body, sending out signals that her conscious mind wasn't quite ready to express. It wasn't overt flirting. She wasn't even aware of the effect her movements were having. But to someone paying close attention, it became clear that these subtle, hidden actions were revealing something deeper, a longing, a desire for connection. and perhaps even a hint of vulnerability. These small, unnoticed signs were telling a story, and he had become a part of that story. The psychology behind body language and unspoken desires. There is a fascinating body of research in psychology that explores how human beings communicate nonverbally, especially when it comes to emotions tied to intimacy and connection. Studies show that the body responds to unfulfilled emotional needs in ways that we are often unaware of. For women who have been without intimate connection for some time, these unspoken cues become the primary means of expressing a deeper emotional longing that hasn't found an outlet. The body, it seems, becomes the messenger, carrying emotions that the mind is perhaps too afraid to voice. One of the most common ways a woman might unconsciously express this desire is through her touch. Her hands might wander to her hair more frequently than usual, or perhaps she'll place them on objects like a necklace or the edge of a glass, as if subconsciously reaching for something more tangible than what she feels inside. Her gaze, too, plays a crucial role. It often softens, becoming intense, yet tender, as if searching for something in you. Perhaps understanding, perhaps reassurance, or perhaps something deeper still. These actions, though small, are an invitation to connect. The space between two people is often filled with an invisible energy, and for someone who is attuned to these movements, this energy can be palpably felt. A woman's body, responding to her emotional state, communicates her desires without needing to say a word. And though these signs may seem insignificant to the casual observer, they are in fact profound expressions of a need for closeness and connection. The importance of sensitivity. Avoiding misinterpretation. It's important to recognize that while body language can reveal a great deal about a person's emotional state, it is also complex and layered. Not every gesture is an overt sign of attraction or longing. Sometimes the body might respond to emotions that have nothing to do with a specific person, but are more about the internal world of the individual. Therefore, it's crucial to approach these signals with care and sensitivity, ensuring that we do not misinterpret them. For example, a woman might make eye contact with you, but that doesn't always mean she's interested in you romantically. She might simply be seeking connection, or she might be lost in thought, contemplating something deeply personal. It's essential to avoid jumping to conclusions based on isolated gestures. Instead, we must look for patterns, consider the context, and above all, be respectful of her space and emotions. Understanding body language isn't just about reading the signs, it's about responding with empathy and awareness. Humor, the playful path to connection. While body language is often the first indicator of a woman's unspoken desires, humor can also serve as an intriguing and powerful tool in this silent language of attraction. Humor has a unique ability to forge connections, especially when it's used in a playful, subtly provocative way. It's a form of communication that can be both safe and thrilling at the same time. Humor allows a woman to express her interest without the risk of vulnerability, testing the waters with subtle remarks that carry layers of meaning. Imagine being in a relaxed, casual setting, surrounded by friends. The conversation is lighthearted, and everyone is enjoying each other's company. Then, out of nowhere, she drops a comment that feels just a little more loaded than usual. "It's been ages since anything exciting happened to me," she says with a playful laugh. Her eyes meet yours, and for just a moment, they linger there, warm and inviting. It might seem like a harmless remark, but if you pay close attention, there's a flicker of something deeper in her gaze. A challenge, an invitation to see if you'll catch the subtle hint hidden beneath the surface. This is how humor works in the dance of attraction. It's not about explicit flirtation. It's about creating a space where both parties can test the waters without putting too much on the line. She's letting you know, in a way that's both safe and subtle, that she's interested in you, but she's doing so in a way that allows her to maintain control over the situation. The key here is that humor isn't just about the joke itself. It's about the timing, the delivery, and the way it makes you feel. It's a tool for building intrigue, for opening a door without fully stepping through it. The art of subtle flirting through humor. In a way, humor becomes a covert form of flirtation, a way for a woman to express her interest without the pressure of directness. It's a delicate art, one that requires the right timing and just enough subtlety to avoid being too obvious. When a woman uses humor in this way, it's a playful test, a way to see if you're perceptive enough to pick up on the underlying message, and if you do, if you respond with a sense of intrigue or even reciprocate with a teasing remark of your own, the connection deepens. The beauty of this form of humor is that it allows for a sense of safety. It's a low-risk way of opening the door to something more without pushing it too far. For some women, especially those who have been without meaningful connection for a while, humor becomes a safe outlet for expressing desires that are too vulnerable to speak aloud. The shift in conversation. Unveiling emotional layers. Conversations between people serve as more than just exchanges of words. They carry the weight of intention, emotional currents, and sometimes unspoken needs. A shift in a woman's conversation, particularly when she's been without meaningful emotional or physical intimacy for a while, is one of the most profound signals of her inner world. On the surface, these conversations might seem casual or typical, but beneath them lies a deeper longing that has been nurtured, possibly for years, and is now seeking expression. What was once easy banter or surface-level chit-chat evolves into something more vulnerable and layered. A gentle transformation in dialogue. When a woman has been starved for emotional connection or intimacy for an extended period, the transformation in her dialogue becomes evident. It's not abrupt, but subtle and gradual, unfolding like a flower opening its petals to the sunlight. She may begin to share more personal thoughts that once were kept locked away behind layers of guardedness. These topics may range from reflections on past relationships to contemplations about her desires for companionship or an emotional connection with someone who understands her needs. These are the kinds of things she may have been suppressing or even neglecting to address, out of fear of vulnerability, or perhaps due to a sense of self-protection. Previously, the conversation may have revolved around mundane subjects like work, hobbies, or current events. But over time, the rhythm of her words shifts. She starts weaving more intimate elements into her speech, often without realizing it. For example, she may talk about memories of her childhood or a time in her life when she felt truly connected to someone. These stories are often nostalgic, evoking a time when she felt warmth, closeness, and affection that she might not have experienced in her current life. The frequency of these intimate discussions can signal that she's opening up, offering pieces of her soul in ways that go beyond surface-level talk. The unspoken invitation. This shift in conversation is not a coincidence. It's an invitation to those who are observant enough to see beyond the words. In these moments, she's essentially saying, "I'm ready to be seen, to be understood on a deeper level." The words she speaks in these moments are not just a recounting of the past, but an unspoken request for connection. She is showing her vulnerabilities through stories of relationships gone wrong, moments of loneliness, or even stories of love and affection that have left an indelible mark on her heart. These stories are her way of opening up her emotional vault, hoping that someone will notice the layers she's unveiling. As this transition occurs, there is often a tone change in her voice, a softness that wasn't there before. The once casual, even light-hearted remarks give way to deeper, more contemplative musings. There may be a slight trembling in her voice as she discusses these personal topics, a quiet indication of how much these memories or emotions still affect her. This vulnerability becomes a window into her emotional state, an unspoken plea for someone to listen, to understand, and perhaps to offer the emotional support she craves. Subtle emotional undercurrents. With each shift, the dialogue becomes more nuanced. She might say things like, "I remember the first time I truly felt loved," or "I've always longed for someone who understands the real me." These are not random remarks. They are carefully placed expressions of deep-seated desires, needs, and even frustrations. Through these words, she might be testing the waters to see how receptive her listener is, gauging whether they can handle the emotions she's about to share. She might even add a subtle humor, softening the impact of what she's revealing, as though to protect herself from the potential discomfort that comes with exposing her true self. For instance, a woman who has been alone for a while might talk about her past relationships, often with a certain wistfulness. She could bring up a former lover, not necessarily with bitterness, but more with a sense of longing, as though searching for a glimpse of something she once had. This isn't just nostalgia. It's a yearning for a connection that went beyond the physical, a desire for emotional intimacy, trust, and mutual respect. By sharing these reflections, she's opening the door to future possibilities without directly saying, "I want this again." Instead, she lets the conversation gently steer toward subjects that might bring forth a deeper, more meaningful connection. The complexity of unspoken needs. But there is complexity in how these emotions are conveyed. It's not simply about talking about past loves or lost relationships. It's about the emotions wrapped up in these memories. A woman who hasn't experienced emotional intimacy for some time might begin to speak about how she feels about being alone, often with an undercurrent of sadness or longing. "It's been so long since someone really looked at me and saw me," she might say, allowing just enough of her vulnerability to seep through. These statements are not cries for attention, but quiet admissions of a need that has been unmet for far too long. These words speak louder than any action could. It's the subtext that reveals more than the spoken language. It's a call for companionship, for someone to recognize the longing in her eyes. When she begins to shift the tone of her conversation, it often reflects an inner shift in her emotional landscape. She's no longer content to stay in a place of passive longing. There's a desire to actively explore what it would be like to have the kind of connection she's been missing. It's as though she's testing the waters, trying to see if there's someone who might meet her emotional needs. As she shares more about her experiences, whether it's the story of a lost relationship, her childhood, or an event that made her feel loved, she's inviting you, without words, to engage with her on a deeper emotional level. She's not asking for a relationship outright, but she is opening a space for connection, one that invites empathy, understanding, and emotional closeness. Emotional intimacy as a silent conversation. What's often missed in these shifts in conversation is that they are a form of emotional intimacy. As she navigates through these personal reflections, she's not just speaking to fill the silence, she's speaking to create a bridge between herself and the person she's confiding in. She's testing how much of herself she can reveal without feeling vulnerable or exposed. In these moments, she seeks a response that is both sensitive and thoughtful, something that acknowledges the depth of what she's sharing without rushing to offer solutions or judgments. For example, she may tell you how much she craves a deep emotional connection, perhaps in a roundabout way, like discussing her favorite love stories or idealized relationships in films. These subtle references are an invitation to go deeper, to understand what she's yearning for beyond the surface. If you respond with empathy, with an openness to hear her without rushing in with solutions, you create the space for her to continue opening up. This shift in conversation, then, isn't just about the words she says, it's about creating a shared emotional experience where her vulnerabilities can be respected and reciprocated. Listening beyond words. A critical aspect of understanding the shift in conversation is to pay attention to how these emotional revelations are conveyed. Listening with intent becomes the most important part of this dynamic. When a woman shares her thoughts about intimacy, loneliness, or the desire for emotional closeness, it's essential to tune into the underlying tone. It's not just about what she says, but about the silences between her words, the moments where she hesitates before speaking, or the pauses that seem weighted with meaning. These are the moments when her emotions are speaking directly to you, and your ability to respond with empathy can deepen the connection. If you notice these shifts, you might also observe how she subtly seeks validation from you. She's not asking for answers, but for acknowledgement. A simple nod, a shared look of understanding, or even a heartfelt, "I know what you mean," can convey that you're tuned into her emotional wavelength. These responses invite further disclosure, encouraging her to continue exploring her thoughts and feelings with you. A window into her soul. Ultimately, the shift in conversation is a moment of emotional release, a window into a soul that has been craving connection. It's a slow unraveling of the walls she's built to protect herself from the hurt of loneliness, a cautious step toward a deeper bond with someone who's willing to see beyond the surface. In these moments, the woman is laying herself bare in a way that feels safe, inviting you to join her on an emotional journey without needing to take immediate action. It's an invitation to see her, not just as a person, but as someone who is ready to be understood on a level that goes beyond mere conversation. When you recognize this shift, you're being invited into her emotional landscape, where intimacy is not defined by physical touch, but by the delicate act of sharing the unspoken parts of her heart. This is where true emotional connection begins, a space where words are just the beginning, and the real bond is forged through understanding, empathy, and mutual respect. Desires and insecurities, the deep longing for genuine connection. There's an undeniable yearning that lies beneath the surface of many women's lives, a desire for emotional intimacy and connection. In a world that often prizes independence, social media facades, and the performance of self-sufficiency, many women, despite the appearance of having it all together, find themselves longing for a genuine bond. A connection that is not built on convenience or superficiality, but on true emotional resonance and mutual understanding. I recall a heartfelt conversation with my friend Isabel, a woman of deep reflection and self-awareness. After months of solitude, she began to notice a shift in her heart, one that even surprised her. She didn't plan it, she confided softly, but after weeks of observing her own life, certain truths began to surface. With the patience only a good friend can offer, Isabel spoke candidly about her loneliness and her search for closeness. At first, the conversation seemed casual, but as she began to open up, I could sense the raw vulnerability beneath her words. "I didn't plan it," she said, almost as an afterthought. "But with certain friends, I found myself talking about my past relationships." Her voice faltered as she continued, "I didn't realize how much I miss having someone there, someone to share my life with." The words were simple, but the weight behind them was palpable. Her tone was heavy, with the kind of vulnerability that only comes when someone feels truly safe enough to expose the parts of themselves that are often hidden. In that quiet moment, it was clear that she wasn't just talking about missing companionship. She was revealing a yearning for something deeper, a connection that transcended the mundane. That kind of vulnerability is rare, and when it happens, it often signals something far more profound than a fleeting moment of loneliness. When a woman begins to speak about the parts of herself she usually keeps locked away, it's a powerful sign that something within her is reaching out. She wants to be seen, not just for her outward appearance or her achievements, but for her soul. She is asking, even without words, for the kind of connection that understands her in a way others might never try to. She seeks someone who can share in the beauty of her journey, not just the mundane moments, but the highs and the lows, the parts that make her uniquely herself. The conversation that Isabel and I shared wasn't just about relationships. It was a window into something deeper, a glimpse into her heart's truest desires. For a woman like Isabel, who had experienced the ups and downs of various relationships, but never quite found the kind of intimacy she yearned for, speaking about it was no small feat. There was courage in those words, a gentle bravery that revealed her need for companionship, for someone to truly understand her. When a woman opens up in this way, it's not simply because she wants a solution. Often she just wants to be heard, to have her emotions held and understood, even without a clear solution being offered. As Isabel spoke, I noticed the subtle shifts in her posture, the way her shoulders relaxed as she allowed herself to be vulnerable, the slight tremble in her voice when she spoke about the absence of someone to lean on. It became clear that this wasn't an isolated moment of reflection. These words were the echoes of months, perhaps even years, of quiet longing. She wasn't simply lamenting her lack of a partner. No, this was a call for connection, a plea to be seen in a way that goes beyond the superficial. For many women, when they begin to talk about their love lives, especially the absence of one, it is rarely just a casual topic. Those words, "I don't know if I even remember what it's like to be held," are laden with emotions that run deep. They may seem like a passing remark, a comment made in jest, but if you listen closely, you can hear the weight of what is being said. When a woman expresses such sentiments, she isn't simply lamenting the absence of physical touch. She's speaking about something much deeper. She's revealing a part of her soul that has been dormant for too long. Behind her laughter, behind the mask of a smile, lies an ocean of emotion, one that has been quietly building, hidden beneath the surface, for as long as she can remember. In these moments, she's not seeking validation or pity. She's offering a glimpse into her heart. And in those quiet moments, when she lets down her guard, she invites you into her world. She shows you a side of herself that isn't often seen, the vulnerable, aching, longing side that sometimes goes unnoticed in the hustle and bustle of life. In her vulnerability, she is asking for someone to hold space for her emotions, to meet her in her longing, and to simply understand. The reality is that many women, especially those who haven't experienced true emotional intimacy for a long time, feel a profound sense of isolation. This isolation isn't just physical, it is emotional, psychological, and spiritual. The feeling of being unseen, unheard, and misunderstood can slowly chip away at one's sense of self-worth. And when these feelings begin to surface, it is often in the form of conversations like the one I shared with Isabel, a subtle yet unmistakable cry for connection. A study I once read delved into the psychology of emotional communication and described how people, especially those who have been isolated for an extended period, naturally begin to open up. They start sharing parts of themselves, revealing their hidden emotions, not because they need someone to solve their problems, but because they hope to form a bond, a connection that will fill the emotional void they have been carrying. For a woman who hasn't felt that deep, soulful connection in some time, opening up isn't easy. It requires trust. Trust that the person on the other end of the conversation will hold her emotions gently and without judgment. In these quiet moments, the words may seem simple or even offhand, but if you pay close attention, you'll notice that they carry a different energy. A woman who has been without intimacy for some time might mention feelings of loneliness or reflect on the things she misses about being in a relationship. She might comment on how strange it feels to be in a crowd but still feel utterly alone, or how even the most trivial tasks seem so much harder without someone to share them with. These remarks are not just moments of venting or casual complaints. They are invitations, silent, unspoken pleas for connection. When she speaks of these things, she is offering you a window into her heart, hoping that you will be present enough to see her for who she truly is. This is not an easy thing for anyone to do. To share such raw emotions is to expose oneself in ways that are often uncomfortable. And yet, in these moments, a woman is trusting you with her most vulnerable self, hoping that you will meet her in that space, not with solutions, but with empathy. In many ways, these conversations are the beginnings of something deeper. They are the foundation upon which real connections are built. When a woman speaks from the depths of her heart, she is not just sharing her story. She is inviting you to step into her world, to witness the parts of her that are often hidden from view. This is where true intimacy begins, not in grand gestures or sweeping declarations of love, but in the quiet, understated moments of understanding and shared vulnerability. Silent jealousy, the unspoken longing for intimacy. Another subtle expression of emotional longing is silent jealousy. Unlike the loud, overt jealousy that often makes its way into movies and stories, silent jealousy is a quiet, almost imperceptible emotion. It doesn't make itself known through dramatic outbursts or accusations. Instead, it is the delicate, almost invisible way that a woman's demeanor changes when she feels threatened by the presence of another. I remember noticing this in my friend Carolina. She was a woman who, on the surface, seemed entirely composed and content. She was the kind of friend who could listen without judgment, offer support when needed, and remain a source of calm wisdom. She never demanded attention or validation from others. Yet, when I started seeing someone new, I noticed something in her that I hadn't seen before. It was subtle. At first it seemed like nothing more than a shift in tone. When I mentioned my new girlfriend, Carolina would respond with a comment about how lucky I was, or make a joke about how some people always seemed to find love. Her words were light, but I could feel the underlying current of something more. It wasn't resentment or envy in the traditional sense. Rather, it was the faintest hint of jealousy. A jealousy that was born not from anger, but from a desire for connection. Carolina longed for that kind of emotional intimacy, that special bond that she saw blossoming in my life. This silent jealousy is an expression of unmet emotional needs. It doesn't stem from insecurity or possessiveness, but from a longing to feel seen, cherished, and valued deeply by someone. It's a delicate, almost protective instinct, a reminder that beneath the surface, there is a heart that yearns to be chosen, not just as a friend or companion, but as someone special. In psychology, this kind of jealousy is known as an adaptive expression, a subtle signal that often goes unnoticed by those who aren't paying close attention. For a woman like Carolina, who has been without intimacy for a long time, this kind of jealousy is not a loud declaration of dissatisfaction. It is a small, almost imperceptible moment of longing. And if you're paying attention, you can sense it, the brief faltering of her smile, the slight tightening of her posture, the almost invisible pause before she responds to the mention of another woman. These moments may seem trivial, but they are full of meaning. Silent jealousy is not about competition. It's not about wanting to win or claim someone. Rather, it's about wanting to be reminded that she too matters, that she holds a special place in your heart and in your life. For a woman who has felt invisible for too long, hearing about someone else in your life can trigger a surge of unspoken jealousy, a reminder that she longs for the kind of connection you share with others. When these signs appear, they should be met with empathy and understanding. A woman who experiences silent jealousy isn't necessarily asking for grand gestures or dramatic displays of affection. What she needs instead is reassurance that she matters, that she is valued, and that the connection she shares with you is special and unique. In these quiet moments when jealousy is silently spoken without words, there is an opportunity to deepen the bond. It's an invitation to show her, gently and without pressure, that she holds a place in your life that no one else can take. It's about acknowledging her needs and offering reassurance, letting her know that the connection she craves is something you too value. By responding with kindness, you help her feel seen and understood, offering comfort in ways that words alone cannot express. And in that response, you create a space where both of you can nurture a bond that transcends surface-level interactions. It's in these small, tender moments that real intimacy is forged. The subtle power of invitations, unspoken desires for connection. In our lives, some of the most powerful and meaningful signals of desire come not through spoken words, but through the subtle, almost imperceptible gestures that reveal an inner longing for connection. Women in particular may not always express this desire overtly. Instead, they often open doors to intimacy in ways that are tender, understated, and unassuming. These subtle acts aren't loud or demanding. Rather, they quietly suggest a space where two people can lower their walls and allow something deeper to take root. For many women, the journey of seeking closeness doesn't begin with grand gestures or formal declarations. It starts in the smallest, most ordinary moments, moments that, when viewed through a lens of understanding, reveal a profound message. She may not directly say, "I want to be closer to you," but through a carefully crafted invitation to spend time together, she is extending a space for quiet connection. It is an invitation to step beyond the surface level and explore something more genuine and profound. Crafting invitations through thoughtful plans. I recall a period in my own life when I was coming out of a relationship and experiencing the quiet ache of solitude. It wasn't that I didn't have friends or loved ones around me, but there was a deeper longing within me, a yearning for genuine connection. It was the kind of connection that could not be found through casual conversations, in group settings, or during brief, everyday interactions. It was a desire for something deeper, something real. Yet I didn't actively seek it out. Instead, I began to craft invitations carefully, slipping hints into my plans to those who sparked my interest. These invitations weren't overt. I wasn't asking someone to come over for a grand occasion or a loud celebration. Rather, I suggested intimate dinners at home, quiet walks under the stars, or simple nights at the movies. The nature of these plans was understated. There was no outward show of urgency or need. But behind each simple suggestion, there was a deeper intention, one that was rooted in a desire to build a meaningful connection in a space that was intimate, free from external distractions, and open to the possibilities of something more. The significance of quiet invitations. These private invitations, when extended, hold a quiet but significant meaning. They are like whispers, soft, subtle, and often passed by unnoticed, unless one knows how to listen. When a woman invites you to share time alone, it is not just about the activity itself. It is about the space she is creating for both of you. It's about the environment in which you can both drop your defenses, share unspoken thoughts, and explore a deeper emotional connection. These moments are not merely a way to hang out or fill an empty time slot in the day. They are opportunities for something more profound to take root. For many women, especially those who have been without intimacy for a while, the act of inviting someone to share a quiet moment can feel like an act of vulnerability. It's an invitation to let down her guard, to step beyond the boundaries of casual friendship, and to test the waters of emotional intimacy. The invitation may come in the form of a simple suggestion, but within it lies a desire for connection that is much deeper than the surface-level activities being proposed. It's an invitation to explore what might emerge in the space between two people when there are no distractions, no friends, no phone calls, no interruptions. Creating a space for vulnerability. What's powerful about these moments of solitude is that they provide the perfect environment for vulnerability to emerge. In the quiet of a private space, she is offering you an opportunity to see her without the facade she may put up in more public settings. There are no external pressures, no need to maintain appearances, and no need to perform for anyone's approval. She's offering you a place where she can simply be herself without the constraints of social expectations. When she invites you to a one-on-one setting, whether it's a cozy evening at home or a peaceful walk, she is also inviting you to experience her vulnerability. In these moments, she isn't seeking to impress you with grand gestures or elaborate plans. Instead, she's offering you a genuine connection that can only thrive in the absence of external noise. There's a certain magic in these quiet spaces where the depth of the connection can grow without the hindrance of distractions. The subtle language of connection. During these moments of one-on-one time, there's often a unique energy that takes shape, a kind of unspoken rhythm between the two people. Conversations may flow in ways that feel both effortless and deeply meaningful. There may be pauses between words that speak volumes more than any verbal exchange could. In these spaces, each glance, each smile, and each soft laugh feels charged with a depth of intention that cannot be replicated in a group setting. This is the quiet language of connection. The beauty of these moments lies not just in the shared time, but in the way that they allow the relationship to evolve organically. With no audience to impress or expectations to meet, the interactions become more genuine, more raw, and more real. There's a deeper understanding that can be shared through silence, through the way you hold each other's gaze, or through the shared appreciation of a quiet moment together. In these spaces, connection blossoms naturally, without the pressure of trying to force it. Flirting as a subtle dance. Flirting often becomes an essential part of these intimate moments, a natural progression when two people feel the pull toward each other but are hesitant to move too quickly. The act of flirting, when done in the context of these quiet one-on-one moments, can transform into a delicate, ongoing dance. It's not loud or overt. It's a constant exchange of glances, touches, jokes, and moments that all seem to carry an underlying tension. The more you share these intimate moments with her, the more you notice the shift in the energy between you. What was once a simple, friendly interaction becomes charged with the unspoken recognition of something deeper. Her smiles may linger longer than usual. Her gaze may soften when you speak, and her laughter may seem more genuine and less guarded. Each touch, whether it's a light brush of the hand or a playful nudge, becomes a part of this ongoing flirtation that builds over time, drawing the two of you closer to something more significant. This type of constant flirtation isn't about trying to force a romantic connection. It's about testing the waters, seeing how far you both can go in exploring this subtle, almost imperceptible dynamic. For a woman who has been without the warmth of intimacy for a while, this flirting becomes a way for her to reconnect with her own desires and to gauge whether you are open to taking things further. The unhurried nature of flirting. One of the most powerful aspects of this kind of flirtation is its unhurried nature. It's not about rushing toward an outcome or making a bold move. Instead, it's about letting the connection unfold naturally, step by step, without forcing anything. This is a type of flirting that builds over time, almost imperceptibly, until it reaches a point where the two people involved can no longer deny the deeper feelings that have taken root. When flirting becomes constant, it's no longer just about surface-level attraction. It becomes a means of communication, a language that transcends words, and allows both people to express their desires, their curiosities, and their vulnerabilities. It's a beautiful, slow-burning dance that requires patience, awareness, and sensitivity. Each moment shared in this dance is an opportunity to learn more about one another and to build something real, something meaningful. Understanding the subtext of flirting. When you find yourself in the midst of this ongoing flirtation, it's important to pay attention not just to the words being said, but to the underlying energy that accompanies them. This is where true understanding lies. If she reserves her warmth and playfulness for you alone, if her gaze lingers when you speak, if she seeks out your company more often than others, then you are likely caught in a delicate game that she has carefully crafted. This constant flirtation is her way of saying, without words, that she's interested in something more. It's a way of testing the boundaries, of gauging your own interest, and seeing if you're willing to join her in this dance of connection. It's not about rushing to a conclusion. It's about exploring the space between you, seeing how it evolves, and deciding whether you want to take the next step. Embracing the unspoken. The real beauty of these moments is found in the unspoken exchanges, the glances, the pauses, the subtle shifts in energy. It's in these quiet moments that true connection is often made. When two people share these intimate exchanges, free from the noise of the outside world, they can truly begin to understand one another on a deeper level. And while these moments may seem casual on the surface, they carry with them a depth of meaning that goes far beyond what is immediately apparent. If you find yourself in a situation where a woman is inviting you to share private moments together, recognize the significance of her actions. Understand that she is offering you a rare opportunity to explore something real, something that cannot be found in the noise of everyday life. These invitations are not just about companionship. They are about creating a space where both of you can be vulnerable, where the connection can grow, and where the possibility of something deeper can emerge. Conclusion: the power of quiet connection. The quiet invitations to share intimate time together, The subtle flirtations and the slow, patient unfolding of connection are some of the most powerful ways that women communicate their desires for closeness. These moments are invitations to explore something real, something meaningful, and something that goes beyond surface-level interactions. When you understand the language of these quiet gestures, you open yourself up to the possibility of experiencing a deep and lasting connection, one that is built on vulnerability, mutual respect, and an appreciation for the unspoken moments that shape our lives. Embrace these opportunities when they arise, for they may lead to something truly beautiful.